we have our next presenter, Angelo Bryant.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelo Bryant, and my thesis is concerning the secret conservation of government intelligence, the balance of what we should and should not know about our American government. Humanity. You. This whole room, we all have a fundamental quality, a quality only humans possess, a quality that has reshaped the known world, a quality by the name of intelligence. From the earliest point in time, the universe was formed by a creator beyond comprehension. That creator is God. In the second chapter of Genesis, it states, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it." God created man superior. He enabled him with the power of reason beyond instinct, and with that power of reason brought history. Some may hail it as mere past events, yet a correct view of history is yet an evolution from tribulation. With history, God made mankind to learn from their mistakes, to become better than their predecessors. The conclusion man has come to for means of improvement is implementing their God-given gift of intelligence into the ideal of authority, and thus the government was born. In the first line of the preamble to the Constitution, it states, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility." But we, who is we? We who band together as a community, connecting our shared sense of reason to create a society. We who allow a government of one another to bring authority, justice, order, and societal function? Absolutely. And only through intelligence is it possible to obtain this effective government. This was not mankind's end for evolution, however. Through wars, policy, and shifts of societal ideals, man has created what is known today as government intelligence. The thought of a governing association making national decisions on the basis of reason was quickly welcomed by society. It was a leap for mankind, but there was an issue. To have a government would imply one individual or group being over another. Therefore, only the governing party can control government intelligence. This new government tool was a gift, yet not a gift for everyone, as intelligence is a powerful possession. And if all were to obtain one's intelligence, what intelligence would there be? In other words, what governing stronghold could be relied on if there is no differentiation between the common people and the government itself? Now, to keep intelligence pure, the government is required to have a regulation of secrecy and transparency within itself. As although people want to be fully privy to information that guides their environmental stronghold, it is in their best interest and safety to keep it between individuals who can utilize government intelligence for the benefit of all. A lack of conserved government intelligence would be detrimental to a nation. An example of such detriments is the state of Russia's KGB during the Cold War. The mission of the Cold War for both America and the Soviet Union was to claim scientific achievements in extraterrestrial matters and to adopt a multitude of intelligence collection possibilities through technological superiority. The Cold War forced both nations to develop major intelligence agencies, with the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, being created in 1949 and the Komitet Gosudarbstvennoye Bezopasnosti, or Committee for State Security, also known as the KGB, being created in 1954, both countries had primary players to aid in the Cold War through civil regulation and counterintelligence. The formation of these agencies birthed a new type of warfare, entirely dependent on how much national intelligence each agency can collect. It's like a game of hungry hippos where the little balls are like bundles of intelligence that these hippo agencies have to gobble up or obtain to win. During the Cold War, Russia had a more centralized and controlled economy. And thanks to their several Soviet satellite states, Russia's financial system allowed for the easy transport of resources and a strong emphasis on scientific and technological development. Even though Russia was more economically and militially fortified than America, its KGB, described by John Earl Haynes, the author of Spies, The Rise and Fall of the KGB in America, was a stopping six-footer, yet one who tripped over its own shoelaces from time to time. The compensation required to keep the KGB steady overran the contributions they made, and the agency became a major contributor to the fall of the Soviet Union. The failures of the KGB were largely attributed to a man named Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev was the last leader of the Soviet Union due to his attempts at reforming Russia through two policies, glasnost and perestroika. Perestroika aimed to create capitalism, or a decentralization of economic control, allowing for greater private enterprise. Due to Russia's communist nature, they weren't very happy with such changes to its political structure. As a response to appeal to the people, glasnost was created to allow freedom of information within government institutions. What glasnost allowed was the complete transparency of Soviet government intelligence, so people were now able to voice their opinions and pin them on the political agenda. To keep up with this political agenda, policymakers and large political figures need to be provided with civil intelligence or intelligence regarding policy for the progression of a nation. However, a governing intelligence agency who collects that civil intelligence needed cannot function if the intelligence they possess is shared amongst their nation, and thus a political agenda will remain undecided. Glasnost was the final straw for Gorbachev, and in response, the KGB, now led by Chairman Vladimir Khrushchev, cut off his communications and put him under house arrest. What was meant to be an undercover operation reached the world due to the extreme transparency Gorbachev established, and their usurpation of power, although necessary, was not ideal to do in the middle of a war, as the U.S. then used Russia's large range of dispersion of intelligence by sending hundreds of spies into the nation to acquire their scientific achievements. The actions of the KGB sparked controversy, destabilized the political construct, and eventually decayed Russia's internal economy, rendering them unable to compete with the West in the Cold War. To aid with understanding, the following 5 terms would need to be defined: subjective, objective, relative, absolute, and checks and balances. The term subjective means based on or influenced by a person's opinions. Concerning government intelligence, it relates to the varying amount of secrecy required for each branch to function. In contrast, the word objective means not based on personal feelings, but rather using general facts to assess a situation. For government intelligence, it simply relates to the ideal that the government has a large amount of secrecy, each kept as secret as the other, regardless of the branch. Relativity and absoluteness in government intelligence describe the type of intelligence discussed. All information is compartmentalized or sectioned off to different branches after being collected and properly processed. However, some pieces of information can be used for all 3 branches. Government intelligence is entirely dependent on a need-to-know basis. If the information at hand doesn't concern you, you can't access it. While subjectivity and relativity can be used in a similar connotation, subjectivity refers to the act of balancing secrecy, whereas relativity refers to the intelligence itself. The same logic can be applied for both objectivity and absoluteness. Finally, checks and balances are the system of government that ensure no single branch becomes too powerful. Each branch can check on the others to balance each other's authoritative power. In general conversations regarding national security, the United States intelligence is often unintentionally perceived as being absolute due to the entirety of it being managed by the government, or more specifically, intelligence agencies. By the viewpoint of former Vice Chairman of the National Intelligence Council, Dr. Mark M. Lowenthal, an accurate comprehension of the significance of government intelligence and its relevance to each branch of government can be achieved. To understand this logic, you first must understand the basic term government intelligence. A common misconception about this particular intelligence is that it's defined as government information. Through the lens of Mark M. Lowenthal, information is anything that can be known regardless of how it's discovered. At the same time, intelligence refers to information that has been collected, processed, and narrowed to meet the needs of policymakers, and therefore, all intelligence is information, yet not all information is intelligence. To say their definitions are interchangeable implies that all information gathered is in use of the policymakers. If this were true, we create the possibility for the political agenda to be based on too much and potentially faulty knowledge. This political agenda, of course, harbors ideas people believe require governmental action, and a multitude of issues on this agenda dilute the focus from the more important ones. However, if only some information is used for this political agenda, how is the government able to separate the right and wrong information to be used? The key reason for this difference lies in what information is needed for issues specifically occupying the current political agenda and how that refined intelligence is managed and distributed, thus creating a balance of what we would and would not be able to know. The balance between government transparency and secrecy is primarily subjective to the branch of government being discussed. Each branch of government has its own type of intelligence. The three types of intelligence used by the government are foreign, domestic, and foreign, civil, and homeland security. First, there is foreign intelligence. Intelligence about the capabilities, intentions, and activities of foreign powers, organizations, and people that are required to conduct foreign relations and protect a nation's security. Next, there is civil intelligence. Intelligence encompassing activities regarding internal threats such as large-scale crime and issues such as the current political agenda. Lastly, there is homeland security, or more specifically, counterintelligence, a relatively new type of intelligence that perpetually evolves due to the efforts of enemy intelligence agencies. Now, if all three branches have varying amounts of specific intelligence, yet they do still all operate with each other, the question may come up. If all three branches work in tandem, why shouldn't they share intelligence between each other? Why wouldn't the United States government be united? The key... The word secret or secretive means not meant to be known or seen by others. So secret intelligence would mean intelligence not meant to be known or seen by those other than those working inside the specific branch it pertains to. You have to have a separation of duties so there can be proper checks and balances among each agency's priorities. As if an intelligence agency were to acquire information that does not apply to that specific agency, then you would have an unnecessary duplication of efforts, inefficiency within the said agency, and sometimes even interagency rivalry due to some essentially doing the wrong job. All agencies and branches of government work together, but they don't all have the same function. America's government is indeed united, but not one. And just as each branch of government has its own type of intelligence, each branch of government also has its own amount of intelligence it can provide to the public. We, the people, wouldn't want to be left in the dark with current events. Civilians, however, can't be entrusted with every bit of intelligence the government has. The U.S. government has an oath of office, which states, "I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office in which I am about to enter, so help me God." This is the oath one is required to sign to become an officer in any branch of the government. To acquire an intelligence position specifically, one must sign the NDA, or Classified Information Non-Disclosure Agreement, which of course legally binds you not to disclose classified information. The oath of office and the NDA ensure members of the CIA and other intelligence agencies will collect, protect, and act on government information with efficiency and loyalty to the government, and without the sway of a moralistic bias. The feeling is, though, that through our unity as a country, we should have objectives and knowledge in common. But what if it's not the civilians? What if it's our very own intelligence agencies that cause controversy? A quote from news reporter Joseph Trento states, "The secret history of the CIA isn't about America conquering godless communism and winning the Cold War. It is more about ambition and betrayal than about patriotic achievement. It is about what happened when an age of fear caused us to turn extraordinary power over to a governing agency run by human beings with weaknesses that we all share. It is about careerism, callousness, self-interest, and hubris. The main idea Trento presents here are the faults of the CIA, or more broadly, intelligence agencies as a whole, stemming from the weaknesses of mankind. The Christian belief is that God made everyone equal, and if everyone is a sinner, how could we trust those in power if they share our same sinful nature? In any circumstance, should we prioritize efficiency over morality when selecting people for governing positions? Morality and human nature have remained unchanged ever since the events at the Garden of Eden. In Genesis 3, we see the serpent tempt Eve with the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Quote, "You most assuredly won't die," said the serpent. "As if you eat of the fruit, you will become like God, knowing both good and evil." The passage and the government are somewhat similar. As you move higher up in the government, you are able to access information that can harm national security if exposed. Shouldn't we all be worthy of having information then if we can't trust those to use it for its intended purpose? A quote from the main lobby of the CIA headquarters states, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Now, if the truth sets you free and freedom was one of the key founding principles of our nation, why shouldn't we, the people, strive for a nationwide understanding of that truth? As stated before, government intelligence plays a critical role in shaping national policy. Policymakers rely on it to guide decisions that affect both foreign and domestic affairs. Typically, leaders are faced with two primary options when facing international issues: inaction, allowing a problem to resolve itself over time, or direct military intervention, which does provide an immediate solution, but risk escalating conflict. Between these extremes presents a third option: covert action. Covert action relies on, y'all hear that? You don't. Silence. Secrecy. Silence, secrecy, and limited public awareness. In this case and scenario, how can we trust these actions to be taken by government intelligence agency if it's all under our nose, if it's all beyond our knowledge? We can see an example of this in the Cold War once again with the U.S. involvement of Poland. Under Ronald Reagan, the U.S. provided support to Solidarity, a labor movement challenging Soviet influence. When military general and Prime Minister Wojciech Jaruzelski imposed martial law suppressing political dissent, the U.S. responded not through direct military force, but through indirect financial aid and strategic messaging aimed around Polish citizens and the American public. This example illustrates how covert action can blur the lines between strategic policy and propaganda. While such efforts weaken adversaries, they raise public perception at home, having us question whether we're being fully informed or subtly guided to support policies we may not completely understand. Despite these ethical concerns, covert action can be used as a necessary component of national security. This covert action protects national security in a way. Through the exact same example of Poland in the Cold War, we see the Reagan administration require indirect financial aid and strategic messaging, but for what exact reason? Poland was a satellite state, which was a prime location of resources and research. Through the Reagan administration's interception of Poland, through its takeover, we have won the Cold War. It was a main turning point in this Cold War indeed. Since Reagan has shut it down. Since Reagan has shut it down, we have conquered Russia in this Cold War. this covert action, this propaganda used by the administration was a sure way to it was a sure way to win this Cold War. This propaganda was a form of rhetoric that helped persuade the American citizens and the Poland public to almost give money to the Reagan administration to further aid their ideals in conquering Russia entirely. It's all for national security. It's all about a balance between government transparency and secrecy, a balance between the nation's relations to their people, and a balance between intelligence. As a balance restores order, and order was a quality that has kept the government and humans all together, still standing today. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Angelo,
Here it
did
is.
you hear that? Did you hear that?
Hear what?
That was
The
clapping.
silence?
The clapping for you. The clapping for you. I've heard two oxymorons this afternoon: government efficiency and government intelligence. You did a good job.
Thank you.
A really good job. So, two questions. How did you pick this topic? And secondly, what are the dangers? When I was growing up, when I was a kid like you, the news only came on at night. It came on at 6, came on again at 10, local news. And then national news. Now, we're fed information 24 hours a day. Something can happen, we immediately know. I can remember my grandparents talking about my uncles who were in Vietnam, and they would sit every night and they would have a running tally of soldiers who'd been killed, and so there would be a waiting for information. Now it seems like we don't have to wait for information. Is there a danger in that? And is what we're being told true? Can we handle the truth is what I'm asking you.
Somewhat. These covert actions that I did mention do have some sort of quality about them that we won't see as completely moral, but it is efficient for protecting a nation's security. And I do want to tap on what you said about being fed a bunch of information, because that information that we're being fed is only barely surface level information. There is so much information that the government has that they're not sharing with us, not because they don't want to and it's because of their own benefit, but it's because to protect the nation's security. Again, most information is compartmentalized within the government, so we are being only fed that little bit of information. And the dangers of us knowing the truth are, it simply weakens our country eternally, because we, of course, risk the potential of there being spies, of there being an outside force within the country, and if that government intelligence is leaked amongst the public, it has a potential to being leaked to those spies. Yes, ma'am. But how I came about this topic was pretty much just, what is a good topic that's controversial, but I want to inform people about? I know, government intelligence. And both my parents, too, are in the military as well, so good little influence.
You did a great job.
Thank you, ma'am.
You said that in the USSR, early on, the KGB and everything was extremely secretive to a fault. And then under Gorbachev, it became rapidly too transparent. And both of those were destructive to the country. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So if this is a dial from one extreme to the other, how well dialed in is the U.S. government in your estimation right now? Are we too far to one side or the other?
I feel like we're too transparent. I feel like we are too transparent. Because there are several, say, like influencers or such that say completely wrong information, but then you'll have people, legitimate government officials, correcting them, and then sometimes even leaking government intelligence that they're not supposed to say. And then they can, of course, reach faults and become fired because of that as well. So we just do have a tendency to leak intelligence every so often. 'Cause we're the land of the free, home of the brave. Everything is, la-di-da, but it's truly not. It's truly not within the world. So I do feel like we are too transparent as a nation.
Thank you.
Hey, Angelo, I know you stumbled a little at the end, but you had masterful engagement with the room, such that, I don't know if I've ever seen a student with quite such masterful use of, hand gestures, eye contact, voice, and silence. I do have two questions. One, you said that Soviet Union largely failed because the KGB failed somewhat in their failures in America. Do you mind unpacking that a little bit?
Mm-hmm. The KGB in America, it was pretty much just a communist community inside of America that served as spies or a way to throw off the American policy through propaganda. And of course, they didn't succeed. I mean, we won the Cold War. They were taken out very, very quickly as a response in comparison to our spies into their country as well. As you know, we are a capitalist society, so we can spot communism from a mile away. So they weren't very efficient, they weren't very efficient in their works.
Second question I have is, Epstein files are showed a lot of intelligence issues, and then when they released information, victims were named and perpetrators were covered. I'm curious if you thought any about your topic when it came to some of the release of information, that kind of thing.
Oh, of course, and that comes back on the topic of morality, because there's a bunch of government officials, there's a bunch of people in high power in the government that are indeed corrupt, but that does not mean the entire government is corrupt. Just because the government is a human ideal, something to establish order, does not mean the government is corrupt itself. It's just the people that are moralistically questionable that make the government somewhat prone to corruption, but it's not inherently corrupt. The Epstein files, however, I do feel like it's a good thing that those were leaked, especially at the time that it is now, and I do feel like that maybe it should have even be leaked beforehand to not suppress any type of political dissent or whatsoever, any type of discourse within the people. As a discourse within the people, you also have to have a trust in your nation as well. If we can't have that trust, how do we expect to function?
That's great. Thank you.
I was just going to say, can you speak the Russian name for KGB again?
Just for funsies?
Just for fun. I just want to hear it one more time.
So, Komitet Gosударственной Безопасности.
So say that 10 times fast. No, listen. Then,
I think you said that a little too well.
yeah.
I could obviously know it.
My question, I guess, is that at some point you did mention spies and all. I guess, is that just the necessary part of gathering intelligence, and there's just no way to stop that? Or, I mean, because you're always with different operations, is that just what's going to happen is we're trying to get their information or other people's information and they're trying to get ours? Is that anything we can stop, or is that just a necessary evil to the process?
So spies, they're not a necessary evil. Now, they're a form of warfare, just as propaganda is a form of warfare and a form of rhetoric as well. But spies do provide or proc the government to make counterintelligence. That's why I did quote in my thesis that it was a relatively new and then constantly evolving type of intelligence. So, it is not a necessary evil. In fact, it is almost needed nowadays. Spies are almost needed nowadays to protect our nation's security and then fight against foreign enemies. So.
Angelo, I'm going to ask you a real basic question. Could you restate your thesis position for me?
Just my general claim. Okay.
Your thesis position, yeah.
So the government intelligence, the balance and secrecy of it is primarily subject to each branch of government being discussed.
Okay.
Do you want me to refine the terms as well? redefine terms.
The one term I want you to talk about is, because I underlined this in your paper, is conserved government intelligence. Define that term for me.
Okay, so conserved government intelligence is just primarily, or leans more on the secretive side. That was just another way of saying it. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And then, how does technology play into this? Like, what role does technology play in intelligence today? I mean, what are some unique challenges that it poses as opposed to even 10 years ago?
Yes, sir. It's another form of warfare. Simply put, there's so many forms of warfare, and technology is such a prominent one that's evolving throughout time that we are just forced to keep up with it. And in technology, of course, you can get radio waves, signaled messages of Morse code from intelligence agencies that are discussing it between each other, decipher it, and then bam, you have their intelligence now. You're in their heads. You're able to destroy them from inside.
Is Morse code still a thing?
Huh?
Is Morse code still a thing? Wow. Sorry.
I have another question. Invariably in TV shows, really good TV shows, you know, the FBI is going to show up and the guy's going to be really gruff, and the CIA guy is going to hate that the FBI guy is there, and then the local police officers, they're both going to tell him go away. And so there's this territory marking. But that sounds, I know that's exaggerated for TV effect probably, but that's what you're talking about, is this agencies having a division of their knowledge for the sake of checks and balances, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me a little bit? We talk about checks and balances with the three big branches of government. We don't often talk about it within branches. So tell me a little bit more about the checks and balances and why that's necessary.
Okay, yeah, the checks and balances system, and then going back to my main point again, how the government transparency and secrecy is primarily subjective.
Yeah.
There's also there's relevant intelligence, compartmentalized intelligence, as I did say. So these checks and balances make sure that it stays compartmentalized, as it's all on a need-to-know basis. And if that need-to-know basis gets broken, then the government turns objective. Secrecy has to become stronger, and then you have dissent, distrust from your people.
I see. Okay.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay, Angelo, I understand what you're saying about the secrecy. You said we can't, we're not made to know everything. I mean, some things need to be
Yes,
kept a secret. But then you also said, and I've heard you say it a couple times, if we don't have trust, then we cease to function. And I think that is your that's your stance, and that's your warning to us. And I think that's a wise one. I really appreciate it. You've done an excellent job, Angelo, and you're all